And tonight we're going to have a little bit of change from the syllabus. So I'll go ahead and look at my GoFlex drive. Going into the last updated that was sent to our class session. For session 13, I had thought we would be moving into styles, enhanced renderings, kind of preparing for putting our presentations together in different ways, whether that be the digital walkthrough that I posted on last week's session as the second video that we missed due to the technical difficulties I was having, or if it was going to be hand rendering. I figured some of you would want to learn that utilizing Autocad and kind of using that as an underlay, or possibly using Sketchup as an underlay. But we can push all of that because that's the icing on the cake. That's extra learning that is not required of me to teach to you, but could help you as you're doing your final presentation. So I'm going to throw that down into the next class session. And instead, some things that I'm required to teach, and also they're working on in 108, and I want to prepare you, and you being the individuals who are not in 108 and only 115, for what you can expect to do in 108 and classes going forward, but make it easier than what the 108 students are doing. So I'll show you tonight. I'm going to be supplying you with full-blown blocks for certain parts of your house. I'll be supplying you with a legend for mechanical that you can utilize to make your new legend. And it'll just be a lot of things that make it a little bit easier on my 115 students as we have less class time between the two classes. So in place of this, we're going to be talking about bringing your floor plan items. If you haven't already done this, this is where it's going to be a big line in the sand. We're going to have 115 students on one side and 108 on the other, and 108 have already either hand drawn or drawn into their AutoCAD using simple lines, or possibly taken it upon themselves to load in some CAD symbols by exporting their furniture items. We're going to talk about bringing those in through SketchUp, because those are things that don't have to be perfect precision like the walls. In the video that I tried to get done when I was on vacation, I talked about when you want to use SketchUp versus when you want to use AutoCAD. And really, if it's for the floor plan, all of the exterior walls, anything with plumbing and electrical, you'll want to keep that in AutoCAD. You won't want to go into SketchUp, draw parts of it in SketchUp and pull it back. But as far as your furniture symbols, basic ones including tables and seating, rugs, any design accessories, they all come in fairly beautifully. I'll show you the reality of how they actually came in by opening another file on my computer, or possibly reloading, so we can have a step-by-step walkthrough of the homework tonight. The kitchen will come in a lot different than this beautiful kitchen that you see before you now, and the same for other elements of cabinetry, and possibly toilets and other things that are a little bit more technical. They just come in with a few extra lines that we have to erase and modify, but there's still a good jumping off point for block planning and space planning. So it depends on what you're using your SketchUp model for, why you're exporting it. But let's keep the technical side to AutoCAD and the fun piece party furniture side to SketchUp as much as we can. So I will show you how I arrived at this. This will be what my 115 and 108, you're going to turn in the same thing, but you obviously have done quite a bit of this already, so there'll just be a few less steps for you this week. This will be what everyone's shooting for. I know I gave you the detail drawings last week as homework, and you were starting to label those, and then I said possibly this week we talk about the stair and how it changed. I will talk more in depth because I added this to the session video on top of the digital rendering presentation on my mistake with the stair, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I'm going to wait to add the text and dimensioning to these to make sure we have the biggest parts of our presentation ready to present, and all those little details are, again, little things that we're adding in the 21st session. So how did I get a nice floor plan like this? I went into my Sketchup for the session 13, and I saved mine all as separate files so I can see the progression, or if something goes wrong, then I'm able to go back to the previous week's session of my Sketchup, and I have the walls painted as they were, so I'm just down a session instead of being out an entire model that I've continued to save over. I want to look for session 13, which for me is actually out of this file this week because it's on my flash drive. And here's my SketchUp session 13 model. I'll click Start using SketchUp. I'll let it load. All right. So for students who are in 108, you've obviously designed your whole house. For students in 115, we're going to end up just breaking out the sections that we've already ended up building. The piece that you're missing at this point is going to be the bathroom area. I do want to point out, and even for 108 students, it's good to note, I had a student in the lab sessions who pointed out to me before I drew the bathroom and it was empty and she wasn't in 108 to know what the requirements were. She was saying, what goes in each room and what's missing? And I said, well, I will supply you with a bathroom and it's going to have a shower over here and a vanity. And she said, well, is that going to be where her closet is at? And I just paused for a minute and thought, no, it's not going to be where her closet is at. And didn't take it into account because for me, I was just using it as a drawing exercise, so I didn't plan it to be super functional. But if you're ever building a model, I think that's one as I think back on projects that I've seen from students and even from my own work when I was in intro. Something that gets easily overlooked is the closet, and the reality for home buyers is if a room doesn't have a closet, it can't be considered a bedroom. It has to have a 24-inch deep closet in it to be considered a bedroom. So otherwise, you can't exactly claim it to be one. And for us, we're just going to have to live with the fact that she has a dresser in this ridiculous 3,000 square foot house, because that makes sense. So for my 115 students, nope, she just has a dresser and then her bathroom. Unless you want to incorporate a closet, more power to you, but otherwise I'm going to supply you this block for your restroom this week. So let me orbit. It's running a little slower than usual, but I have added more things. All right, so she has a vanity with some false drawers and 2 sets of real drawers and a mirror, a place where she can sit, a bathtub that also doubles as a shower. Look at all of her candles for relaxing. And then I have my master bedroom now with the small end table and some artwork, a rug, her writing desk because she is a writer, and her teeny tiny dresser where she's meant to supply all of her summer clothes as she vacations here. So here's where she's going to put her clothes. Then in my living room at this point for all sections, whether you're on 15 or 108, and I've graded for the most part everyone on their plan with these spaces filled in, you should have a table with the dining chairs, some type of living room, and we all had the kitchen to start, and if you filled in the window nook, you did. If you didn't, that's fine. It wasn't required. So I, at this point, know that I want to go back into my Autocad where I did have this big empty space of a floor plan, and I want to fill in my furniture and also add the walls that were missing. So the furniture, I'm suggesting you try to see what happens when you export it from SketchUp. So you're left drawing as little of that as possible, but it gives you more detailed blocks than you might be able to download from an AutoCAD resource online. Their blocks are usually more circles and rectangles. Sometimes they're detailed if they're straight from the manufacturer, and we talked about how you can get those. But if you've already drawn it in SketchUp, don't recreate the wheel or reinvent it. Let's go ahead and export from there. So what we want to do is go to our camera, standard views, top view, and I believe just from how I left my drawing last, if I only pan and do not orbit, let's see if I'm in parallel projection. I am. So this is as true of a floor plan view as I'm going to get looking flat at all of my furniture items. At this point, before you export your drawing, make sure you have any visually interesting elements applied within here. For that, I mean any pieces of furniture tucked under desking the way that you'd like them, or something sitting on the table, any accessories, just all the details. Have them figured out before you're exporting so you're not constantly going back or forth or trying to add that into your AutoCAD later. If you have any type of bedding you want to be pulled down, any items, maybe even people, or any type of plants that you want to not have to draw in your AutoCAD, plants can take up a lot of time. This would be one area where you could import some plant models and you'd have great overviews from the top view of the camera that could be imported as a flat tree for your site plan within AutoCAD. So let's see what happens when I do and export this. File, Export, 2D Graphic, and I'm going to choose my DWG file. A DWG file is an AutoCAD file. I'm going to click Export, but before that I want to make sure I know where it's going so that I don't lose it. So I'm going to say my desktop because I'm at school, and maybe I'll say AutoCAD because that helps as a reference point for the class. So I'll hit Export. It'll go to that AutoCAD file location on my desktop. I'll know it's done when I get my message that pops up in SketchUp that it's been audited. And really, I'll know it's done when that little blue wheel of death stops spinning. And I'm sure we've all noticed the bigger the model it gets, the longer it takes for the wheel to spin and for the drawing to be audited. All right, AutoCAD Export Audit, OK. I'll click OK and I'll minimize my drawing. Then I'm going to go into File, Open, and it was in Desktop AutoCAD. And here, I believe, is what I'm looking for. I can tell by the date 4/14/2016. I should have labeled it something better, floor plan export, given it a title that would be more recognizable. And I'll click Open. The drawing file was saved in an application that was not developed or licensed by Autodesk. That's fine. It's just telling us we're importing it into or exporting into AutoCAD from SketchUp. Continue to open the drawing. So this is what you get. It's not beautiful. I wouldn't want to take this model and slap it onto a D-size print and try to turn this in to Cheryl at the end of my class. You're missing quite a few pieces. Notice that the kitchen doesn't exactly look like a completed kitchen. It's missing the wall on this side and all of the backs to the cabinets. If I zoom in closer, I can see the lines are a little disjointed. But chairs and things like that are really fine to have some disjointed lines, some roughness to them. That's really more of a hand-drawn technique that it gives it. It's up to you. If you want perfect straight lines, then you might want to draw it as a rectangle and cut and trim all of those out. But for me, I'm happy with that part of the drawing, and really I'm happy with the outline of my kitchen. My dining chairs, I could have been a little more intentional with those. It depends on the look you also want. Some people like to line all of their chairs up immaculately around their table, straight, all tucked out 2 inches or pushed under 6 inches. I like to have one or two that are kind of pulled out and straying away as if someone is living in the space, but that's a personal preference on how you want to present your floor plan. So I'll say I'm okay with that. And I'm also okay with the pillows being a little bit fluffed on one and not on the other. I might want to move some furniture as I see it pulled into my plan, but for the most part, everything looks good. Now, I don't want everything because I have beautiful, nice wall lines within my AutoCAD drawing already. So what I want to do is delete out the parts that are unnecessary. And for me, I could delete out probably partial of the water. I might want to come back in for my stair later because that's new. I've updated that and I could copy that onto my new drawing. But most of the walls I'm going to delete. I'm even going to delete the ones that I drew in SketchUp. Especially, I recommend this after grading a lot of your work. Not that it was awful, but just with a few things off, it's better that we've already drawn, or I have drawn, those lines for my 115 students as a file that you can use. I don't know if you remember that. Let me pull it up really quick. I saved it to this session as well to make it easier for you guys to access and remember. So if I go to Open Drawing, Computer, Free Agent 13, and it was the boathouse floor plan, bathroom limited layers. I know some of you, I saw this on your computer during lab hours. We'll just open that drawing and we'll copy the walls into our drawing from here because we know they're perfect with the drawings that you guys have drawn already. But as far as the furniture goes, we'll keep all of that and copy it using a reference point. Now I'm going to show this with leaving the kitchen and explain to you what I did to the kitchen to fix it later so it didn't look so junky. At this point, it's up to you if you want to copy everything over and then start kind of picking at it, but I noticed this corner is off. That's where I'm going to come through and fill it some lines. They work and function just as AutoCAD lines, even though you imported them from SketchUp. I don't mind the messiness of these lines missing. It kind of, again, gives that hand-drawn look. It's more so when there's lines that are hanging out in the middle of nowhere, or this one came in a lot cleaner even than when I exported it yesterday. Just rough edges. For instance, right in here, SketchUp knows that the headboard is really, let's look at my model, kind of a flocked, padded headboard. And you can see that it has the protruding pieces in blue. And so they're each functioning as a rectangle that should have been a completed line in front of this other rectangle. But when I look at my AutoCAD, it's kind of this jumbly mess. This is where I'd want to come in and turn on my ortho and my points. And I could draw it across. And I don't care if it's even a little bit off of a line, but just complete the drawing so I can tell what's going on in it. Fill it the edges of that, because it's supposed to be poofy and fabric, but it just doesn't need to look like a mess. So I'll keep drawing a couple of lines in here. And this one could even come up a little bit, and I could pull some of these lines across. Remember, they're just lines. You're not hurting anything in the drawing. You could think of, hey, I want this exact corner on this side. I might want to mirror that against the middle of this piece so it completes it on the other side. Where's my erase? No, enter. There we go. And then you have to think about the logistics of things and the fact that it did delete the corner out of there, which means I wouldn't in reality see the pillow back here. So It's just thinking as an artist, thinking in perspective and thinking about deleting out the pieces you could really see, couldn't really see, cleaning up your drawing so it's more accurate in plan. All right, so I'm not going to waste 5 hours showing you how I'm cleaning up dots, and I could because I love doing it, but I will leave that be. This is what I'm talking about though in the rubric, what I'm grading for this week. I'll open that for you. I've posted this to session 13. So I said, export the following furniture from Sketchup into CAD. 108 will submit their CAD floor plan. So I'm assuming pretty much 108 that you're done, unless there's anything that you haven't done from SketchUp to CAD that you would prefer those blocks instead, and you can do that this week. I want the master bedroom, master bath. I said for 115 you can use mine or create your own. If you want to draw new wall lines or add a closet, that's fine. I'm not going to be looking to measure your walls and see if you've drawn them exactly how I had them. If you want some creative license, you can. You just have to have a bathroom, and it has to have certain items. So it has to have a toilet or a shower, things that make it an actual bathroom. It can't just be another hole in the wall with just a closet. Dining room, a kitchen. For the kitchen, 115, you don't have creative license with that. Just keep it as it is. I'm supplying you with a block. I'll show you that in a minute. Your living room. And here's where I say, make sure you make changes to the messy or SketchUp furniture, erase lines as necessary. That will play a big part into your grade. We haven't done a lot with precision in a while, but I am going to be looking for that as you export to CAD. So, yep, I'd continue to do that to all my different spaces, and we'll talk about more how I got to this as we export it into or copy it into my other drawing. I don't need this. This is the fireplace. Just delete out all of the walls. Okay, so maybe at this point I even do keep the stairs in because they're snapped perfectly into the corner, so they could be my reference point and function as giving me my porch. You'll see what I mean by that in a minute. Can delete all of these items out. All right, looks like I've got it down to just the furniture items and the porch. Here's a rogue line. Here's my roller shade. I don't need him necessarily. Okay, so now I'm going to crossing tool to the side and copy. And then I've been changing my mind. Usually I show it to you again from my crazy drawing with my work information in it, but here I have an old Ton drawing open where I've been doing the rest of my work to make sure I see it as you guys see it within the drawing you've created with all your tabs and how your text has been set up. So this point is where I would paste it and it'll bring it in, and for now I'll just bring it down. So for your homework, what I want you to do is make a copy of your floor plan. Do not paste this furniture into your original floor plan. Part of your final grade is going to be turning in these drawing sets clean and fresh, just as you have them already set up here. So you're already getting points. You're already getting a good portion of your grade for having completed this previously in the first half of the semester. That's why any of you who had outstanding grades for those items need to complete them before the final. It's not that this has gone away, it's part of your final grade. So if you have anything that's still off, lines that are incorrect, lines over lines, all the things I've asked you to correct, or stuff you just haven't turned in, please get that to me as soon as possible. And you'll need it for this week's homework as well. So go ahead and copy the entire drawing down. So one, you don't disturb this and you can have a clean set. And two, you just have a backup in case anything happens. So for me, I've already done it once, and I want to keep that there as my own reference. But let's pretend this copy isn't here, and I'm you, and I'll come through and I'll copy this down. Okay, so I copy it down to the bottom, and then I need to take this drawing and apply it over here. I can delete off my deck because, and right now I have already put the new deck in here, but you guys have the old one with the incorrect stair. And the incorrect stairs in your SketchUp, I can't show it right now, but I do show it in the video that you'll be reviewing to finish last week's homework. They ended up being, the rise and run were such that if you were to take a step, it was almost 12 inches up. So every rise was 12 inches high. It had a pretty average run, but it was still impossible for anybody to get down and up naturally. So I went through and corrected that, and I want you to correct it in your plan. And stuff like that happens all the time in the field. We measure wrong, we don't do something right, so I'm just going to treat it that way, but I do want it to look correct in your drawing and in your SketchUp. So that's where you're, from last week, adding the new stair in there. Now we're exporting the new flat version of the stair onto our drawing. So you'll take whatever stair you had when you copy your floor plan down and delete it off, clean to the corners. Okay, then you'll come over and you'll bring this part of your drawing using the point where your porch or deck attached to the house and snap that to the corner as a reference point, which brings your furniture more or less where you want it. It's going to be hit or miss for a few of you. Some things didn't come out exactly perfect in your SketchUp model, and that's why I'm not using it to import the walls. But for your furniture, you can still move it around. So at this point, it depends on how you want to do it, but the more things are blocks, the easier they are to move. Now, another thing to remember is the moment things are blocks, the harder they are to edit. So you want to do all the work on your blocks, the cleaning up of the lines, before you make them blocks. If I'm happy with my dining table, then I could go ahead and type or select it, and then make sure you have all the lines. You could see some of them are not selected. All right, looks like I've crossed over all of them. They just look a little goofy out here. And I type in block and let it think about it. And then I'm going to go ahead and type dining table and enter and let it think about it for a minute. Sometimes it'll give you a prompting screen, an editor that'll pop up, and if we encounter that, we'll cross that road when we get to it. But all that happens if the editor pops up, it'll say, do you want to edit the block? And it'll be a big gray screen with this on it, almost looking like it's on a piece of paper. And you'll go up to close block editor in the upper right-hand corner, and then it'll come right back into your drawing, and it'll be a block. So I've made that a block. Now it's easy to move without all those lines getting left behind and being messy. But it's pretty much where I want it to be. All right, now that the kitchen is in here, and since only the back pieces were missing, it almost looks like a kitchen. It's just missing some very important parts to have on your kitchen plan in the floor plan view. People in kitchen and bath are so familiar with this at this point, they don't even care anymore. But for the rest of you, what I've done is I started with this view, and then I actually turned and conveniently, let's see, where are my layers? Way over here. Okay, so conveniently, Tan has done what I've asked her to do in past homework and put this on the hatch layer, so I can turn the hatch layer off, which will help me see what's going on back here and make sure that it's actually to the wall. You can see there's a little bit of overhang, but our SketchUp model for the kitchen, I stretched and skewed it. I just took someone's random model from SketchUp, brought it in. I liked the overall layout, but I didn't check much more than to make sure the cabinets were about 30 inches. So something that was reasonable to say it could be kitchen size, but not perfect. So I'm going to want to use my linear dimension and check and see just how far off I am of a realistic kitchen. So not bad. 24 inches is actually pretty accurate for the base cabinet. We'll just need an overhang for our countertop. And let's see down here how far we're off on these cabinets. 2'2", so we'll need to come in an inch so that we have the overhang for our countertop and space for our base cabinets. Our upper cabinets should be about 12. They can vary to about up to 15 depth, but that's very strange for European style cabinets. Usually it is about 12 or 13, taking into account the door. So this is quite large. We'll have to adjust that. And then we'll have to add the fact that you can usually see the dashing for your countertop with the base cabinets underneath it. So that's what I have done for you, because I'm not trying to kill you in these last weeks, I promise, although it seems like it at times. I've made a block with the updated cabinet, with the overhead cabinets, the uppers, the lowers, the kitchen countertop accounted for with the depths, and all of the lines cleaned up, that I'm giving to you on the session link. So if you were to go back into your class sessions 13, I'm not going to because I have some grades pulled up right now, you could find it under the homework submission as a download for you to download both this drawing and the cleaned up version of the bathroom drawing with all the pieces that you'll simply snap into the corner here and snap into the corner of your kitchen. All right, so saved you some time there. It's just going to be an exercise on downloading those blocks and copying them into your drawing. But the other pieces of your furniture, it's up to you what you want to make a block. So notice I've done some adding within CAD. Once you see it as a floor plan in truly black and white, it's a little bit different than looking at it in SketchUp. You can start to see it more artistically, what's missing, because there's not a lot of fluff. There's not a lot of parquet really visually filling up the space. It's just empty space, and I can see where I need details or to add a few items. So I can also see some things didn't export in even though I had them in my SketchUp model. Sadly, my favorite plant decided it was not going to export, and I was left drawing that to my best of my ability with lines in Autocad. It's a little wilty, but it'll do. And then I added a few more pots because I felt like the table looked empty, and I had a set of 3 in here that I was kind of mimicking that pattern. So I added a few details within CAD, just drawing circles. And then I thought, how empty does this space actually feel without a rug in it? And considering I don't have a rug under here, I thought a round rug would really help tie in the circular seating arrangement of this space. So I simply took a circle and drew it over here, and I'm missing some. Okay, I was like, I'm missing my draw toolbar. I'm going to drag it to the top. So I took my circle and I grabbed it from the center and really just arbitrarily dropped it in. And then I cut out from all the furniture pieces. And let me do that. I know it's been a while and we're going to love getting back into AutoCAD. So let's remember some things. Snapping will make it rough, so we'll having on your ortho as you're trying to do things. Originally it looked like this. I used the trim tool by choosing the pieces of the furniture until it was gone within there. Now you have to zoom because SketchUp is 100 billion pieces, and if you didn't make it a block, it's not going to be a clean break. I'll hit enter and trim off that first piece of rug and continue around the outside until I have a beautiful seating arrangement on top of a rug as such shown. All right, so we're all going to have a little bit of difference in this, but this is what you're working towards, a cleaned up floor plan with a kitchen in the view. Same thing up here. You're going to have whatever floor plan you had for your master bedroom, and This is where you're going to want to actually choose how your door is oriented. Now notice my bathroom layout. So for those of you who want to copy my bathroom layout in, you'll simply come out 4 inches and draw your door going in. And then you can use my layout, which I've supplied as a block in the drawing attached to the submission link. If you've changed it a little bit, then you could even explode my block and move it. But if you are going to draw your own bathroom, you need to make sure that your cabinets are the proper depth and that you're showing a cabinet with a countertop line. More important than even the depth is that you're showing me the dashed lines for what's going on underneath. If you have drawers, and we might get into labeling next week, but for now I'm more concerned about the placement of the furniture items. So I want to make sure you have those things if you've planned to do your own kitchen and bath. But otherwise, you can copy mine and save yourself some time. So let's go ahead and see. This is about what it looks like. It copied my deck in. You'll notice something's missing. All of the lines that were associated with my original deck, they don't come in from Sketchup. So what I actually did was I took, and I think I have your original deck up here. Okay, so before I deleted my original stair, I copied that version off to the side just to save for future reference. Then I copied all of the lines associated with it, or at least most of them will say, and I found a point to copy them about, and I simply pasted them where I felt they were most appropriate, so that I didn't have to do it all over again. And then I trimmed off the side and dropped it in so it just looked like a deck, because I'm more concerned with the stair being accurate than I am with every plank on the upper floor. You could just offset it a billion times if you want to as well. Just offset whatever number of thickness that you want the decking to be, or look up what we originally did it when we drew our deck and it'll go all the way to the side. So you could copy and do some trimming, or you could offset each of the individual planks to fill in the rest of your deck, and then you could copy that to your site plan. So that's easy enough. And then I have the lines for my water, which I could delete out of my floor plan, but I could copy to my site plan, because I will need an updated version of that with my deck to see how the river is getting access to the home. Okay, so this week in your rubric, on top of the furniture that I want you to bring in, I want it to say, let's say, bring in new staircase and attach it to your site plan and floor plan. Make sure you make the changes to the messier SketchUp lines, erase lines as necessary. So I did a bunch of cleanup work. It really wasn't that bad though. You could see as I brought in that last stair, the original one I did had some edges coming off, but it looks like a cleaner export this time. So you might not have much to clean up at all, which is great. Oh, there we go. There's a guy. And yes, I will notice this guy. So we'll delete him out. And then if you wanted to, okay, I won't judge you for this one, but if you want to make everything line up straight, you can, so that it's not just hanging out on the very edge with no purpose, a 1/4 inch away from being accurate. Okay, so there's the updated stair that I'm talking about. Then there's create a lighting electrical layer. If you do not already have, then add the following to the master bathroom, master bedroom, dining room, and kitchen for 40 points. All right, so hold on, I want to reread this. Create a lighting electrical layer if you have not already. There we go. It was right, just felt weird. So if I come back into my drawing, I have it toggled off right now before, because I wanted to talk about furniture first, but I will toggle on Tons, although she doesn't have this copy of it, lighting and electrical. Notice I've turned it off, the little freeze thaw, and I'll talk about the difference between the freeze thaw and the actual light bulb here in a minute. So right now I have the light bulb off and the freeze thaw on, so it's not frozen, it's thawed. Notice pieces are there, but not everything's there. And you don't know not to everything's there because you don't know what you're looking for yet. But notice this, where there's just a few circles and what looks like snowflakes flying around in my kitchen. Now, when I come back up to the top and I get in my layers, I go back to lighting electrical and turn the light bulb on. Now all of my electrical components are there. So I have my switching, my lighting, all of the lines associated with my switching that show how I'm connecting the lighting to each of those switches. I have my ground fault circuit interrupters, and I also have my hood range plug, which were not there before. So I found out this week, and I've never noticed it before, and I don't think it's always been the case, but if you have this trouble, once you make something a block, this is a block. You can tell because the little stems are connected to the circle. This is not a block. I've arrayed the little stems around the circle and it's showing up as double pieces, okay? Once you make something a block or even an array where it has this weird circle, and a student sent me, it was actually Matt, sent me a drawing this week of his array and he said, I can't trim it. And you can only trim an array if you explode the array. So there'll be some exploding that goes on if you try to array some of these. I know most of you will end up just drawing lines off your circle, but we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. So once it's an array or a block, it does not disappear when I turn off the light bulb. So let's see, lighting electrical. So it left my array. That's this guy right here. He was arrayed around the circle, and it left my blocks. But it turned off all the individual lines that were on that layer. These were blocks as well. So that's going to be a difference. And when you go to, for instance, if we want to print the floor plan without the electrical and lighting on it, you want to turn that off in your drawing view, in your tabs. So I have now created a floor plan electrical session 13 tab, which is what I'd like you to create for this session as you go to turn it in. And I'm going to want all the electrical on for this week. But as you're looking at it, if you're working, you could have it off or on by coming in, double clicking. I'm going to unlock it for a minute. I'm going to come up to my layer properties, and if I wanted to just have it on or off, turn these on and off in here, I could come down to my lighting electrical, which is here. It's just closed out a little bit so it's hard for you to read. And I see the light bulbs off. Now, if I turn it off here, it's going to turn off in my model space out in the actual model space. If I viewport freeze it, it's going to turn it off only in here. Okay, so it's on in model space, but when I go back to my tab and I'm in my viewport and I'm active in it, I can toggle on and off a layer only to be turned on and off in here. So I'd have to scroll over. It looks like it pops back up, not where, and here you see it's frozen. Now it's unfrozen, and now it's unfrozen, and I've turned this on in model space. So there's lots of different things that are used for different reasons, but viewport freezing is better than to have to constantly go back to your model, turn it on there, come in here. You could just have these views locked to have certain layers off, but they'll be on in your model space all the time. So for your homework though, what it's going to look like when you turn it in is exactly what you see here, and I'll load this at the end of the class. I just wanted to add some things into it or see how far we got. I'll probably add the legend in so you really see what you're turning in this week. And I want it on your D size. All I did to create this sheet was, I know it's been a while, so let's see, our core drawing is basically the same thing I have on without the furniture. I went and I right-clicked, new layout. Should pop up. Ooh, you're so frustrating. Oh, I did do a new layout. It must be here. Oh, it's going to the end. Okay, I was like, where is it going? That's not what I want. Don't listen to me. I'm doing it backwards. Okay, so if we come back in here, still right-click, but then do move copy. And then from move copy, select your core drawing and create copy. Okay. All right. Move copy, select your core drawing, create copy. Okay. There you go. So now I have this version of it. You can see there's a 2 next to it of floor plan, electrical, session, or it could have been core drawing, and I have the second version of it. Now I'll have the same exact thing ready to change. So if it was the core drawing that I had selected, I do move copy, core drawing, create copy, okay. There I have now a core drawing too, and that's where I could say floor plan, and then electrical session 13, and click off of it and find my view of my new drawing. Oh, now let's remember that we've all locked our viewports, or at least they should be. So while I'm double clicked in here, I want to unlock it, allowing me to move down to my new plan where I've copied in my furniture, position it as precisely as I can, centered in the drawing, double click out, or if you want to, you can lock this as well so it's stuck in place, and then double click out. And now you would send me this as a PDF this week with your new updated drawing with all of the electrical and the furniture on it as well. And I know they're going to be overlapping, that's fine. I'm just looking to see that you've done it. I can zoom in and see all the details that I need to without you adjusting anything that you will for our eventual final drawing sets. Okay, so good. This is a good visual of where we're going for our homework. Let me take a minute here. I'm going to check and see if any of you have chatted. Nope, we're still doing okay. All right. Heckling in the background. So, coming back in, I've created a new tab and I'm ready, and it goes with my drawing set. Now, because I've already created a tab, I'm going to delete some of these extra ones so it doesn't get messy. And for instance, I have a bunch of these over here that I accidentally deleted. I'll just clean up my model space. Tabs. All right, layout. I'll keep one in case. And then I have my own plans that are for your guys' homework. So this is the one that you'll want to turn in down here. Floor plan electrical session 13, where you have your new drawing on your own title block as you had already updated it last time you turned plans in PDF through Autocad. Here's tons. And so you want to make sure though, not only is it centered, but it did accurately stay 1/4. It should have if you just panned down, where I just dragged it up and down. So it kind of functions as SketchUp. As long as we pan and do not orbit, we're okay. It stays at the scale we want it to be. Now I zoomed out, which is the same as orbiting in CAD, and now it's wrong. So I want to come down here if that happens, where the white box is, and I will change it to be 1/4 inch equals a foot. I will pan it back into the center and double click off after locking it. Double click. All right. I'll go back into my model space and talk about your electrical plan. Okay, so I am not giving you dimensioned electrical plans. I think that this is a good exercise for you guys to practice on your own. Lighting is a different beast. It can be pretty artistic in itself. Some people are very specific on how they like their lines to flow. Let's see if I have some examples from my kitchen and bath class that I can pull up for you. If I go into my free agent drive. Yep, 1 second. For AutoCAD? Yes. For 108, yep, exactly. So if you've already done it, you've already done it. I know, this is this is where those 108 students are starting to be like, hey. So 108 has their own time because they have another class that's running the same as ours, same house, but they have an entire whole nother 2-hour class devoted to it. So they've been working in the background on some of this. So for 108 students, if you've done these already, you just turn them into me. That's what I'm looking for, is just to review them. And then next week, we'll talk about how to set them up in your paper space so you can turn them into both Cheryl and me as neatly as possible. But for my students, you can copy mine depending on how close your plan is. Some of you have done different things. I know some students put their dining table in here. Some people put their living room furniture in here. All bunch of different arrangements, except for the kitchen should be in the same spot. So the kitchen could be the same for all of my 115 students. I'm not going to dimension it out. You can eyeball it. I'm not going to look for that this is, you know, whatever it is to center. And let me turn on some of my points. I have center of face. I'm going to set some more settings. I just want normal object snap. So I need to click the one next to it. Normal object snap. I'll turn off 3D because I don't need it. Make sure midpoint's on, yes, okay. So if I come back in with my linear dimensions, and I have to turn on one more thing so that there's a node and maybe even an intersection. Perpendicular, there we go, perpendicular. I'm not going to give you a dimensioned layout that says 2'3", 3'6", 4 foot. You can figure it out. If you know that you want each of the sides to be equal, then leave equal space in your layout to get as close to what I did or what you feel is accurate. In my layout for my kitchen, I'm showing some perimeter 6-inch cans. So this is a 6-inch can, this is a 6-inch, these 5 on the outside. And then I'm showing some 4-inch cans in the middle that would be dimmer, but just would help to radiate light through the center. And then I showed for some under cabinetry task lighting, and then I had switching to each of those. So I also will expect some ground fault circuit interrupters, and they have to be, as I've said on your homework, for the, it says create lighting electrical layer if you do not already have one. Okay, that's half the battle. Lighting. Please give a thoughtful layout that would make tasks easier and add to your design concept. For tasks being easier, that's, for instance, adding the under cabinetry lighting. You would want to make sure that you don't have a bunch of congested lighting, just everything in a cluster over here in the corner, and no lighting out here, which seems pretty straightforward, or only lighting around the perimeter in a nice rectangle, but nothing in the center, so it'd be this big black hole in the middle. In your bathroom, usually, and this is more technical, but we talk about in kitchen and bath that you want to have a light that illuminates up or possibly sconces on the side so that you don't have direct light coming down and casting shadows on people's faces. So I wouldn't line this with a bunch of can lights. I would probably do some decorative lighting around this area. That's what this is here. It's hard to tell because I also have my furniture layer on right now and we haven't changed the line colors yet. And then for the bathroom, I have a smaller light over the toilet, some 6-inch cans throughout the space, and then a light/fan in the shower. So that's for a task. I want to be having light coming into my shower and also having some type of fan that allows me to get rid of the heat and moisture. things like that you're thinking. This guy I just threw in here in the last 5 seconds when I was creating the drawing. I thought, wouldn't it be great if I had a ridiculously big fan with a light on it? And honestly, I'd probably have more. I'm not a big ceiling lighting person in my house. I would never put in more can lights. I love the decorative lighting, so that's what my plan is for her space. I just need one central fan light, and everything else, she has huge windows. So I figure for the majority of the time she'll be okay, plus a table light that I'd need to add in or a standing light over here. So I'm looking for you to add those lightings and switching to your drawing. Mechanical items like your ground fault circuit interrupters. For your kitchen and bath, they have to be those. They cannot just be basic receps. They can't just be the 120 volts without the ground fault circuit interrupter because of moisture issues. So the same thing, if we have this hood, I'm expecting some type of place for that to plug in and vent. I will be supplying you, well actually I've already supplied you with this drawing over here to the side. But if any of you would like these symbols as I've drawn them on my blocks, I can copy them as I'm talking about them to the side and just provide them for you with your kitchen and bath drawings that I will post. And I've actually already posted them, but I can add these as separate elements. But you'll have to watch the video to know what they are without the labels. So again, ground fault circuit interrupter. Under here is an under cabinetry light. And then between each light at its center, I have a line signifying they're connected and which switch that they end up going to. Let's talk about switches a little bit. There's single pole switches, and I don't know how each person is familiar with lighting. It's different depending on how far you are in the program, but here's a single switch, and it can support all of my under cabinetry lighting to this side. Then I have another single switch that supports all of this. And here I have an S3, so a three-way switch, which doesn't mean that it has 3 switches on it, and it doesn't mean that it controls 3 things. What it means is it shares controls with the light switch on the other side of the room. So an S3 is when you can see I have these lights are all connected, and I can turn them on from here, or I can turn them on from here, or I can turn them off from here, or I can turn them off from here. So both of the switches can control that section of lights. And then these middle lights are controlled right here by this switch. So I connected all of my lines at the centers of these spiggity ends to my lights, my can lights that I drew. And really, for the most part, this does signify a can light. It'll just be the circle with the radius of whatever your true can light is. So for 6 inches, it has a 3-inch radius, and for 4, it has a 2-inch radius. But sometimes you can make things up. For instance, I had already given you this mechanical symbol legend, and a legend is just meant to have a picture that represents whatever you're saying to the side. So if I tell you this is a duplex floor receptacle, it is fairly universal that that's what this is, but I could also copy these to the middle of my room, and then I write, this is a 4-inch can light, and if the radius is 2 inches, nobody's going to argue with me because I'm the person determining my mechanical symbol legend. Now, they might argue with you if you were going to put this symbol and say this is a can light, because this is very much the symbol for the ground fault circuit interrupter. And this true for the duplex with the double duplex. But as far as circles are concerned, or even rectangles, it's fairly loose and open for interpretation, and you can draw and create your own lights, such as the track lighting fixture. You'll see here they have them as triangles. This becomes closer to the depiction of whatever type of fixture you're using. So in my bathroom, I said I have an old Hollywood 3-bulb track light, and then I could come into my Sketchup model and notice I don't have anything. I could go through and try to download the closest light to that and put it above my mirror so that it's accurate to my both drawings. And you can go back and forth between the two. You could continue to export lighting. Just be sure, for those of you who are using any decorative pendant lighting, that, for instance, I said there's a pendant light over my table, which I hadn't done anything with lighting yet in my SketchUp model. If I was going to go into SketchUp Warehouse, and I said, pendant light. Let's see how much we come up with. Mine is big rectangular pendant light. So I'd keep going until I found it. Here, this is probably closest to what I have above my table, supposedly. So I'm going to download it into my model. Yes. And it says open or save. I'll say open. Start using. Well, it opened in its own drawing anyway. Interesting. Okay. So I'm going to say camera, standard view, top. And I'm going to say edit, copy. I'm going to go into my drawing, camera, standard view, top. And come over and put it over my table and say edit, paste. About here. Now it should fall on my table, I believe, because it pasted on the face. So it's going to paste to the first face, but it is going to be on a face. Then I'll get in a good place to view it. I don't think this is my model with my nice walls all turned off already. Actually, it might be with the self view. So I'll go into Tool or Window. Default tray is not open. Show tray. It's behind my go-to meeting bar. And default tray layers. Okay. Mine is on south walls for view. All right. Okay, so let's see. If I start, well, really I want to turn the second story on to see how the roof truly is happening and where it's going to hit. So there's a lot to consider in it. Now, you're not going to care about this for your AutoCAD necessarily, but it's just good to think about all of these pieces and how they go together. So you can see my blue line guy, and I'm locking him into place so I know he's moving straight up. Blue line still locked on. Now I'm just doing this as an exercise for you to realize how high these ceilings truly are. They're huge. So there's a lot of space up there. I'd probably want to move him down, again, closer to a table height. And then I'd want to edit his size. And then I'd want to go into my block and edit the suspension. And it'll be pretty long suspended line, so you want to take into account, if you're using pendant lights, just how far that is going to fall towards the roof. It might be quite a distance, which I know a lot of you added beams or different detail work to make that a little more visually pleasing. But here's what it would look like in my SketchUp, and I could have exported him from here, but I'd have to adjust that then to be accurate within my digital rendering. So I'm going to look for the accuracies in both of your plans. If it's in your floor plan, it should be in your SketchUp. If it's in your SketchUp, it should be in your floor plan. Now for my 108 students, There are some things where you guys have worked more in AutoCAD, so I will be more lenient with that, but for my other students, I'll be looking for a little bit more accuracy because we're mostly exporting our own from here. So it should be whatever you brought out is what you have. All right, so now that's accurate, we'll say, for as much as I'm going to play with it in front of you guys. Let's talk about, we talked about the switches, why I have S3 here. And here I just have single pole switches, and here I have a single switch too. So you're going to be working on these plans and creating either your own lighting layout and connecting your lights. Some other thing that hangs people up or students up is for a single switch, even though these are 6-inch can lights and this is a 4-inch can light, the single switch can have different types of lights on it. It just notes what you're turning off at once. So I could even have this guy, this decorative lighting, along with all of these if I wanted to. There is going to be a maximal load at some point. We're not concerning ourselves with that as much for now, so just don't do 150 on one switch. But for this switch, it doesn't impact anything to have a different type of light paired with another light on one switch. Okay? So keep that in mind while you're doing it. That's basically lighting 101 as much as I'm going to get into with everybody. Another thing that's nice to think about for maybe my 108 students, I know you're very far at this point, but definitely as a design thought within the process, I've added in some wall washers strategically within my dining room space, and I could add them anywhere I want to. I could have even put one right here that simply washed this wall where I plan to have a piece of art. I have so much creative freedom right now with this open space and how big the house is. And then you have these great places to present artwork and photography, whatever you want to showcase. So I added a wall washer here. I could have centered it more with the wall. I thought maybe it kind of captures some of the lighting into the reading area as well. But think about lighting besides just can lights. It gets very monotonous and boring in people's plans to see constantly can lights of one size. Do think about how these are very bright. They fill a lot of space. So if I want it more dim, I have a dimmer pendant in the middle, some wall washers, but some very bright 6-inch cans. And then I just had a couple 6-inch cans and a few very dim 4-inch cans. So think about how you're using sizes. Don't just copy a billion circles in and call it done. I want to see a little bit of thought. I'm not grading you on if you're an electrician, and I'm not thinking about foot candles, but I want to see something more than just circle, 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 done. I will be looking for not dimensions match, so I don't care. This could be 2 foot on this side and 2'4". I want to see it's mostly centered if that's your plan for your lighting. I will be looking to see that you understand lights are usually lined up in certain situations. So like these perimeter lights do line up with each other from center. If I snap to the center of this light and to this light, these 3 all line up. These line up across to make a nice rectangle. So there should be some straightness. I don't want to see this. You can't just have lights arbitrarily everywhere. That's not how lighting works and where they're trying to plan on catching certain types of beams or interior structures, or really just, it's just not how it works. I don't know a better way to even say it. You want to make sure that they're in rows for the most part, but you can rotate your squares in the center or have some type of grid that's not perfectly row, row, row. Here I've just added a few that are in rows but off center with other existing rows. So make sure there's some straightness to or pattern to your lighting, and it's not just a bunch of circles randomly throughout the space. Okay, so I'm gonna check my time really quick. 6:40, perfect. All right, so let's review our rubric thus far as we have it. Outlets. Also create a mechanical legend using the blocks I provided and any blocks you might make yourself. All right, so here's where I'm saying if you really want these and you're going to get anal about exactly what size I scaled those to, because I did scale the mechanical legend that I had for you. So for instance, if I copy this object over to here, and when I say I gave you this, I gave it to you during the session for blocks, so it's saved hopefully somewhere to your computer because that was part of our session homework. But you can see these were a little bit overkill in the size, so I scaled them down. All I did to do that was select the object. It was already in pieces that were scalable, so I came through and grabbed the scale tool, enter after selecting it, picked a point to scale it, and I clicked it about that point. I don't know why he disappeared. We will figure it out. Hold on. So let's see. I might have scaled him too small. And then I kept scaling him down. And then I just rotated it to whichever side of the wall I was using it. Usually the longer prongs are on the wall side. I ended up cutting mine because I didn't like how they were spacing out with my cabinetry. There was just too much in the way once I included the under cabinet lighting, so I cut the ends a little bit to pull it back so I had easier readability. Again, this is just a standard hood range denotation. I'll show you, that's where I got lost and on a tangent. Kitchen and bath, drawing standards. Okay. Now I'm not grading your kitchens or baths or their lighting according to the rules. I'm just making sure that you know how to accurately bring a set of lights together with lines, connect them to a switch, understand the difference between a single switch and a three-way switch, and the idea that you need at least multiple locations and tasks accounted for within your space. So let's get to this guy. So here's a more common kitchen, and here's where they're saying a hood plug as well as a dishwasher plug, and they noticed that by having an H denoted to the side and a DW on the side of this one. So pretty straightforward that it matches the text to the side. They had, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. No, it's not letting me. But here it's just like I use the under cabinetry light. That's a fairly common symbol for that. Always the receps outlets with the two prongs that are longer on one side and a little excess hanging off the circle. Sometimes even people completely trim off the extra prongs on the other outer edge. These are really the basics of what we're using, and then you create a line of text at the top that says mechanical legend. So we're going to end up talking about tables, hopefully, if we have time. I'm still trying to prioritize everything we have left and leave it so that pretty much next week on, besides a homework assignment, is question and answer time during the class time. So looking at what we have here for this week, when I say I want a mechanical legend, I simply want you to take whichever things you choose to use on your plan. And for me, I even have this big honking rectangle above my table. And you'll have one for your kitchen and you'll have one for your bath and your master bedroom. Well, kitchen and dining, master bath, and master bedroom. Okay, so for these areas, you're going to draw them all to the side, and you can even use this as a reference. It's going to be the exact same thing. So you're going to have the symbol, and notice how they line them all up with the center, and then they have the text all aligned to the side. You could even just copy this and use it for your own to create your own little mechanical legend by moving your symbols up to the side next to the text. And you could right align, left align, you could have it centered and then all of your text, so it's really up to you. All are fairly viable. For the most part, they're usually centered. And then you have your text gridded out to the side. So for me, I'm just going to say, and I don't remember which one it was copying without looking at it, 4-inch can light. And then I could delete this text and come through and say hood 120 volt. I'll delete the second line of text because I don't need it. And then this is my ground fault circuit interrupter. So I'd say ground fault circuit interrupter. Oh, and I spelled interrupter wrong. Thank you, Autocad. And then I'll come through and this is where you'd say you'd make up your fancy specific name unless you're in 108 and you do have a light fixture. If you're just pulling it from SketchUp, I'd say Monaco pendant. And then I'd give the size of it. So I'd say 5 foot by 1 foot or whatever it truly was. And you can tell from your SketchUp when you bring your model in, it says Winona long pendant. If you want to use the title they give you, great. If you want to make it up and be creative with it, I don't care. Just as long as you have text to the side that makes sense with the symbol to the left of it. All right. And then that you have some type of label above. Obviously, this is a little bit much and I don't want it in magenta. But you want to take everything you have and create. And sometimes we do mechanical legends just like this. Notice they've just drawn them. You could even copy this to the side and resize it if you want to. So I can come through with this and pull this over. Make sure that my ortho is on for that part. There's 2 sets because it's framed. And then I could trim from here because my mechanical symbol legend is not very big. And I could scale this down. So really I have a little bit of freedom with this. I'm not trying to give you over instruction that panics you. Mechanical symbol legend, and here I have it. And I would continue as many as I have. Please do not leave 10,000 inches of excess on your screen. Close it in to be as many items as you have neatly to the side. And you could even make this smaller if you want to. Just doesn't need to be huge. And a lot of times it will be like what they were showing on the kitchen and bath plan. I've seen it done both ways. You could possibly just have it with no frame if you like the look of no frame better, where there's just a title with an underline. So in that case, you could delete out the box and just have your underline, delete this, move it up, scale it in, move it over, and have that above. And you can bring it as close as you want to and put it underneath. And I'd want to align it a little bit more centered. All right, so there's a couple ways to do it. And then there's truly a way to do a table, although in the field we constantly draw our own all the time, because usually it's just a quick rectangle and some lines. So I'm looking for you to have this. Let's see what I'm going to give you tonight is a PDF, as a reference for you to look at, because I know you guys love those. And last week's was going to leave you crazy because you didn't have as much direction. You were just told to do it and follow the video. So let's see. Put it where you want it. It could be to the left, it could be to the right. Kind of align it with some point on your drawing. So I like to align my text just so there's a clear visual edge that it's following. All right, then I'm going to go to my new floor plan electrical session 13. And now at this point, I might want to unlock my drawing when I'm in it. Unlock. Notice there's two different locks. Some of you do this, and that's not correct. You want the yellow one. You can drag him maybe over now instead of center. Or if that bothers you, because you know when someone's flipping through your drawing set, they're going to be looking at it center like this, you could draw your mechanical legend over here and keep it center so that it's just off to the side. Play with your space. See what works best for you. You'll never know until you try. And eventually, this is just an exercise for this week, but eventually we'll be moving it anyway. So, can't hurt. All right, so I'm going to export that for you. Again, I want all your information as you had it when you last imported the PDF. So for Tan, she has her name and address, or name of her design company, the project. You update the date to be the current date. The scale should be 1/4, and then update your project name to be lighting / electrical. All right, there you have it. So now that I'm done with talking about this week's homework, I just want to make sure that we're all clear on last week's homework, because there was a lot left to you guys to review on your own. So I'm going to go take my screen off for a second, as I have some content on it that is for people's grades. And actually, while I'm on here, I'm on Starfish recording attendance, and some of you came a little bit later than others, so I'm going to do a quick check to make sure I don't count you absent. So you're there. Janice, yep, Joanne is here. Madeline, Robin, and Camara. Okay. I think we're all here then. I'm going to save it. All right. I'll share my screen again in a minute. Okay. Let me get on the Blackboard. CAD. Class sessions. Session 12. How many people, and just in the chat say yes I did or yes, have watched the second half of class video? I watched a portion. Yes, I did. Yes. Okay. Okay, you watched the first one again. Not all. Okay. So I'm gonna review the homework rubric. Let's see. With you to make sure it's clear for everybody while I have you, before you try to turn it in. I feel I'm very lost with all of that homework. Okay, so let's review it then. So I gave you the dimensions that you have for your detail. In your AutoCAD drawing, what you should have had from exporting, and if you didn't successfully do it the first time, and you'll know you're successful when the dimensions match up to the dimensions here. And if you really cannot do it, and I want you to really try, we can have a session meeting and I can give you the drawing, and then you can you can end up adding the text and labels and everything, and you can take a small deduction for that. But if you do get it to export in, then what you want to do is check the dimensions of it. I'm going to go back into the boathouse plan that I had open. I think in Tons is where I was working on them. All right, so here is what it'll look like when it comes in. This is pretty much what it looks like when it exports in from Sketchup. So what I did was, again, that's in the video where we did it a couple weeks before, and then we're redoing it if we didn't do it right the first time. But where you zoomed into the side profile of the mantle, and then you chose the appropriate view until you were in parallel projection from the side. And then after, this is not the appropriate view, but I think we all understand what I'm saying. When I got it into the profile of the mantle to look like the AutoCAD behind. So basically, once I got it to look like that in SketchUp, then I came through, and this is where I did the file, export, 2D graphic. Now I had parallel projection on and everything. I'm just assuming we're past that point. So then I export it to wherever I want it to go as an AutoCAD file. I made sure it was selected as an AutoCAD DWG, and I said mantle profile and hit enter. Then it exported it into a separate drawing, whatever it was. So for instance, if I was on my desktop, even though this is not the mantle drawing, if I went to AutoCAD where it exported my mantle profile quotations and continued to open it, here was whatever exported. And here's the little piece of the mantle profile. So pretend it's correct. But from this drawing, I took my mantle profile and I could right click and do clipboard copy. All right. Then I go into my boathouse drawing where I have everything else because this is where my drawings live. And I'm going to paste it, and it should look like this when I paste it. That's what it will truly look like. So then from there, I'm going to start drawing what the interior of the mantle will look like, because this is a detail of how it's being built. All right, so I've given you in that picture something to mimic and draw it off of. Okay, so you could technically draw it if you didn't have it import or export correctly. So if I go back to my blackboard, you have the dimensions, 7.5, 11 3/4. You could draw this all as lines, but this is showing you how to dimension it. You're not dimensioning it though for your homework. These are just dimensions so you know how to draw in the pieces of the interior. Okay, so you're drawing in this piece, you're drawing this circle with the arc, all of these things you're drawing in. And I know it's possible because some students have completed it. So it is possible. And then after that, you get that drawn. Let me go back to here. So that was the mantle zoom detail. There's also the cabinetry zoom detail, which shows the overall cabinetry, and it was just like a far off view because I myself can read this. I can read all these dimensions just fine. Some people need it blown up. It's easier for me to think of it as a whole, but for those of you who need to see it blown up and it's easier to zoom in on that and see that, I took the top part and put it up here. So that's just this part pulled to the side. And then I took the bottom part and put it over here. That's just this bottom part pulled to the side. Then you'll put them together. So you'll need to see these overall dimensions here, but this helps you see the little tinier stuff inside. So that'll help you to draw the basis of the cabinetry detail using AutoCAD. Now this one, unlike the mantle, I didn't do from SketchUp. And technically I did. I just know it'd be a lot more work for you guys. Some cabinets that you get from SketchUp, if you pick the right one by like CraftMade or whoever, they might be perfect and be meant to be exported and do details off of them. But some of them, like mine, were just rectangular blocks, and while they built them with to have a door thickness, I had to scale it all up and change it. I might as well have drawn it in AutoCAD. It would have just taken a ton of time. So instead of doing that, I did do it in AutoCAD, and I'm giving you the dimensions that you can copy and draw it as a drawing, and then you'll learn to label it or modify it according to the drawings that you're doing in 115 if you would like to learn to do this as another detail for Cheryl's class. If you are in 108, you still have to do these. But they should be modified to be as they are in Cheryl's class. So you're not turning me in mine, you're turning in yours. So if you have a base cabinet, you're thinking about how it's built and saying, okay, I have my 2-foot cabinet with my door with whatever type of handle you have. So if it's a knob, it's a knob. If it's a long elongated handle like this, it's elongated handle. If it's, I don't know, but you need to draw it as you have it in your model or as you have it in your specifications so it matches. For 115, you just copy this, draw it exactly as it is. The only discrepancy in here is that originally I was like, oh, I'll have it square with this. Now I'm saying I'm adding a little bit of overhang because that's better. This is a more European. I'd rather have a little bit of edge on my countertop instead of had it flat straight with the cabinetry. So it's okay. That little modification, we may or may not make it. It doesn't bother me at all. So that's what this is. There you have the 2 zoomed in views that you're going to draw in your AutoCAD. And again, once you draw them in AutoCAD, here's what they will look like. This guy right here and this one right here. And after you draw them, then I had some views that showed you leader lines with circles that eventually you will be labeling them with the appropriate size text and saying to the side what each of the pieces are. You know, this isn't happening in this week's homework, it's in the future, but this is what we're looking for. A 3/4 inch thick hardboard. That'll be here, 3/4 inch hardboard. So this is just the process of drawing details. And I'm giving it to you in pieces where we're starting with the just bare bones drawings, then the labeling, then the text. So I also included in that session D-size detail drawing, what I expect you to turn in. And so here again, I have the student's example of their title block, the location that your fake business is at, the drawing, the date, the scale, which for these, notice the scale is 1.5 inches equals 1 foot 0 inches. Write that down in your notes unless you want to have to watch the whole video because you can't remember that it was at 7:05 p.m. So go ahead and just write 1.5 inches equals 1 foot 0 inches. That's different than the 1/4 inch scale of the rest of our drawings. Details are always bigger, and this is a pretty standard size for details to be drawn at. So now when we print on that big piece of paper, that teeny tiny text that you saw in the drawing is actually blown up quite a bit and easy enough to read. So I wanted you to come in and using your leader lines, And I did it in, let's see. Oh, this is a PDF. Here I am double clicking on this like it's going to get me somewhere. I did it in the model space in the paper space, but I really don't think it makes a difference. Here, we'll give it a shot both ways. So if I was to delete this and then do leader, we'll see what the difference is. Turn my ortho off and my snap off. Okay, so there is a difference. Oh, okay, so let's get this out of the way. It's been a while and we haven't done it this way, and this is not how I do it for work. So if I tried to draw the leader in here, it'll be jumbo, ginormous leader line. We don't want that. So I did do it in paper space like I taught you for the first semester, because that's how the book teaches. And if you want to review your book pages for that, it would be fine, and it might be helpful to go back and review. So I went into my detailed drawings, and you notice the black box is on, so I'm already in my model space. I have it locked so I can't move it around, and I added my leader lines. And I'm in a student drawing, so your leader lines are set up the same way, your text is set up the same way. So I simply draw my leader line out to the side, and then it's going to give me a text prompt, and I'll say no by clicking off, which keeps the leader line and allows me to have a space to draw a circle to it and put my circle on my leader line. So my circle, for those of you who really want to know, I'll turn on my point, is 1¼ inch. But if I go to draw that circle in paper space within, or model space in paper space, let's see my circle guy, put him up here. Let's see what really happens when I do 1.25, enter. Okay, so it is accurate. It's 1 and 0.25 for the circle. We'll make it the size about necessary for the text to fit in later. But I really wasn't concerned. I just wanted you guys to get it as close as you could, or you could have done a little bit bigger. If you think it's easier to read, you could do your text a little bit bigger. I'm not concerned that much with the precision as long as it's not a circle this big. Can't do that. So 1.25 was what I typed in for my radius as I drew it. Within paper space, within model space. Okay, so the black box is on, my drawing is locked. Now notice I double click and it's off. And now I can't select anything except this guy, which is sneaky, and we don't need to talk about him. So that's funny. Okay, so this is what I'm looking for from you, though. That's why I supplied you with this PDF. Where is off for the leader line? Okay, so I said that funny. Off for the leader line. Now I have to double click to get back in the black box to draw one. If I go to the leader line, I left click, I find the point, and I start pulling it off to the side. Then I click once with the left click. Then it prompts me to write text. If I don't type anything and I left click anywhere else, that gets me out of the leader line but leaves that little stem so I can add text of my own or a circle. Perfect. Let me see if anyone else has texted. Robin, is this helping you feel a little less lost for this part of the assignment to at least understand what those PDFs were?
Yes.
Okay, so let me see if there's any other PDFs. So that's the detail. Then another portion of your homework is the new deck, which I briefly touched on in here. But in my model, I have created, without making you draw a whole new one, the deck, which I think you pasted, or this actually was the session you pasted in to your model. So here's what it's going to look like, and it made it a lot longer with the appropriate rise and run. So then I just had it, it's not ideal because they don't have much ground space down here, but I had it run into the decking that will support the landing of the boat. And I changed a little bit of the railing so it kind of flowed together. But I used a dynamic stair that I knew all the treads would change and be accurate to how it should be. So what I've done is supplied you with on your homework this week that SketchUp file. Open. Start using SketchUp, which I want you to paste in place. It's very easy. So I supplied it like this. You'll simply select everything here, edit, copy, go to the model with your existing junky stair, which mine is right, but for the heck of it, we don't care. So we're going to delete that guy, and we're even going to delete this stuff. I don't know if I did that too. I can't remember just now. But then if I do edit, paste in place, it snaps it exactly where it needs to go. So it's really a couple clicks for you guys to correct your model, making it better for your presentation. And then we'll correct it in the drawing this week. And then I will give you that stair detail next week. And you'll have already been versed in adding details as I showed you tonight and how to work on those. And we'll get a little bit up to speed in doing lines again and leader lines and everything. So that's just another step to your homework. Add the stair in, just paste in place. It's different than paste it in place. And I already had it at the coordinates that it could snap right on and you don't have to worry about it. Okay? And then in the video, I do explain, now this model's already changed, but when you go to paste that in place, you'll notice that this ground is not anywhere near where that decking is. In fact, it's going to be way closer to the stair and even less space. So part of the video was I said, please go ahead and pull it out so it gives them more grass space and just looks a little normal instead of being a bridge to nowhere and, and then they just land in the water. And this same thing with this side. Now this side had a little bit of a trick. I had to hit control while I clicked it because it'll lock, it is going to tell you that it's stuck at 3/16 of an inch for some reason. So as you pull this out to look a little bit better too, you just hit control and drag it. And the video will show you how I want it. I just want it to end up a little tighter and slimmer through here and then a little more space at the end of the staircase. Nothing specific. I'm not measuring, is this, I think it's about 7'6" to be honest with you, what I ended up with if you really care. But I just want to make sure they don't end up in the abyss of the water off the first step. So that's another piece to your homework. And let me look at the rubric really quick before I close on and move on to kitchen and bath. Rubric. This is not my rubric. Let me call it, oh, maybe it's opening in here. Open, okay. So digital walkthroughs. So here's the cabinetry details. Oh, here's where I said the circle radius. And the leaders are to have circles but no text or dimensions yet. And then the digital walkthrough, complete the views. That's that second video. And then the update, the stair, that's an easy 10 points. And here's where it talks about push pulling and bringing in the stair. And there's where it says I was going to move these things to a different week so that it balanced your workload for you. So if I go back to session 12 and I look at second half of class, this video almost ran exactly how long we had left in the class when it junked out on us. And it talks about how you can use this as a presentation tool to have a nice walkthrough. And even though we haven't completed the entire building, and we're not going to, I mean, 108, they might, and they can show us their entire models and their final presentations, but no one's ever going to know the rest of us didn't, because we're going to use this special slide tool over here with the scenes, and it will help us to create a pretty finished project. So let me see if I can skip through it all, because I don't have my scene set up on my SketchUp. I want it to just rotate through a couple views. I know there's some point where I played the scene. Come on, scene. Here's where I made my layers turn on and off, and I talk about getting the room how you want it to be. But really, it's not a super long video, and you can adjust the length of your scene times. So here I set it, and then I think I hit play after this. So you'll see how it works. So I set it to 1 second, so it'd be a really fast transition. But then I went up and I do the animation and hit play, and watch, it'll go through each of my scenes. So there's my front room, there's the front of my house, here's the back of my house, here's the floor plan, here's this. Now, if it wasn't for the floor plan where it's a little bit empty, no one would ever know, because it transitions through each of the scenes and kind of does a little spin to it, so you would never know that your house is completely empty. But for what we're doing, we just want to make sure we have areas of the house done, and then this could be a portfolio piece that you go back and finish after you have the tools to do it. All right, so you'll finish this video, and then you'll create these scenes over here, and it gives you a step-by-step on how to do that. So I wanted to clear that up with you guys before I left, and we were able to cover everything for this session. I wanted you guys to know that teaching is now my only job. Starting the 21st, I will be done with my other job and taking more hours at Ivy Tech. So I'm going to be in person for the last 2 weeks of class. I'll be here on campus, not every day, but if you need appointments during the daytime, I'll be available. I'll be available for meetings almost any time during the week. So if you need me, I'll be here extra. But those last 2 weeks will be used for that. We did have some conversation today about how our class, the 5th, falls on the student show. And as far as I know, I'm running class. And so for some of us, that means we're actually physically here in lab. So we're going to have to talk to someone on campus and see if that's okay and that's how it's going to work. But I know a lot of you have finals on the 3rd, and our class is still going to be treating our finals on the 5th. So that's exactly how it's running. Be here on the 5th. Class is still going, even with the student show going. I'll talk to Kathy and see if there's an alternative location, but I'm pretty sure our class will be running. It will be wonderful for me. I'm happy. It's a lot more flexible day hours to do other things. So see my baby more. But I think I'm ready to call it a night. If anyone has any questions, go ahead and email me. I'll be available for lab hours on Tuesday. And some people who were at my lab hours last night were asking about why I didn't post the video. I tried to, and it ran in the background of my computer for 4 hours. So I can give it another try tonight, but it's just not finishing converting, because I don't know if it was longer than usual. It really wasn't. It was only 2.5 hours. So I'll give it another try. But if you do have questions, just email me or text me. For those of you who had my number, if you want my number, you can email me to get it. All right, everybody have a good night.
Night.